Okay, we're up to Daf Chaf and Kesuvos, and we're holding on your Testament days 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 lines from the bottom. Tan Rabbanan. We're in the sugya of Kiyum Shtaris. We have more this evening, all about Shtaris. Tan Rabbanan. Shnayim Chasumim ala Shtar. 2 people signed on a shtar, and as we said, once the Edom on a shtar, it's a viable shtar midaraisa, and the Chachanim were talking in Kiyum Umesu, and they consequently they died. Ubo Shnayim min Ashuk. 2 people come from the street. Two people come from the shuk. V'yamra yedanu sheksav yadam hu. We know that what is the ksav yad. So them l'chayra them mekayim the shtar. Aval anusim hayu ketanu hayu psul yesma. We know for a fact that these people, when they signed, they were anusim. They were forced machmas nefashos, or ketanim, or they were ketanim, or psul yedus. We know that, in other words, we know that the shtar, it's not a really good shtar. But they're mekayim the shtar, so it's a shtickle pesha asar. In other words, without them coming, we don't have anything. We just have the people, and those people are dead. So now they're the people opening up to mekayim it. But again, with the pesha asar, there's always the but. So the but is that these Edom that signed, they were coerced to sign. They were kstanim upsulim. Hariel nemanim, they're believed to go ahead and say the shtar is not a good shtar. The Pesha Asa will now go ahead and take the chazaka that this guy goes ahead. Remember, a person signs a shtar, he's going to make sure they're not getanim. We had a chazaka, psuli edis, he's going to check into the edim beforehand. Anusim, okay, we had all Torah. And bottom line is that we're going to go ahead and believe the Pesha Asa, we're going to believe them. If we have edim, other edim, that this shtar is the ksav yad, or we don't need these Edom at all, the ones who are testifying, either because they're other Edom, or because we have a shtar that Shekarl of Ira of a Huxik with Bezdin, another shtar that had been a concern that maybe it was a counterfeit, and Bezdin authenticated it. They wrote their henpeck on the shtar, so we know unequivocally that these Edom are this is their signature. So now you don't need the Edom anymore. In other words, the Pesha Asr is off. The Pesha Asr is off. Ein elonem onim. These are not believed. Umagbinen be kishtarim aliyah. And l'chayra, the Gemara wonders, you would be able to collect with the shtar? Because again, all we have the Edom on the shtar. They're dead. The ones who are saying they're anusim katana psuli edis, we don't need them. Because we have other means of authenticating the shtar. We don't need them. So it says the Gemara, they believe, they're not believed then. And therefore, says the Gemara, you would collect the amai. Why would you collect? Trei utreininu. The chayra, they are 2 against 2. Who's the 2 against 2? Says Rashi in the bottom. Trei utreininu. Eidei hashtar beis. The eidim that signed on the shtar are 2. The elu beis meidim aleihem shepesulim hayu b'isha. So in other words, we have 2 against 2. So the rule of thumb of 2 against 2 is what? Is they weaken each other. And we should say that the shtar is not a good shtar. In other words, I don't have Edis. I don't either way. I don't have a Kiyam, I don't have Edis. That's the Gemara's question. So we have 2 versus 2. The Edom that signed, and the Edom was saying they signed but. Okay, that's what says the Gemara. And for the Gemara, I'll tell you why it's a good shtar. Amrav Sheishes, Zoisei Meres, we see from here, Hakchasha Techilas Hazamahi. Now, we're not going to get into the sugya of Edom Zoimamin, but just carefully. Achasha is where you deny the Edis. So these people say Harry owes George $100. 2 Edom say Harry does not owe George $200. That's Edom Achasha, each one weakening the other. Edom say Harry owes George $200. He lent him on Wednesday. 2 other Edom come and say, you were with us on Wednesday in such a place. So Edi Azama, they're not disagreeing with what transpired. They're just questioning, how could you have gone ahead and been there in the first place when you were with us? The halacha is that usually by Edis Hachach, they weaken each other. By Edi Hazama, we believe the latter pair. That's the Chiddush Ve'edim Zomimim. We believe the latter pair, and goes into effect the concept of Kasha Zomam. Whatever they wanted to do, if they wanted to chayiv $100, they have to pay $100, so on and so forth. Even in Dinei Nefashis, we would kill them based upon their testimony if they were testifying against a capital offense. Anyway, l'chalapachas. So we're saying here along this that Hazama is Hakchosh is the beginning of Azama, but we don't want to get into that. All we want to know is one thing, that Hakchosha and Azama mirror each other. In other words, the same halacha that applies by Azama applies by Hakchosha. What's that halacha that applies by Azama? Amid Aleph. What's that halacha that applies by Azama? Just like you cannot make Edim Zoimim only in front of them. The only way you can make him Edim Zoimim is in front of them. So too, you can't be Makish Edim and only in front of them. So you want to know why the shtar is good shtar? What's your taina? It's 2 versus 2, the 2 that are signed and the 2 that are saying they were nusim. These 2 aren't there. They're not there at all because they're dead. Memela, you can't be makish them. If I can't be makish them, then it's a good shtar, which is kind of, we're going to, right, instantaneously, we're going to go ahead and we work that. But it's explaining why, and the Gemara said that why it would be a good shtar, a viable shtar. It's 2, it's 2. The problem is that they're not around. So the Gemara is going to ask the obvious question. And if they were around, 2 possibilities. One, it's tray versus tray. And maybe they'd even go ahead, it's worse, maybe they'd agree. Maybe they tell you the truth, that when we signed, we were in Nusim, we were Psuleidus, or we were Pekanim. So it says, right away, the Gemara attacks. But again, that's the reason why, right now, the one that said, Einan Monan, that you could collect, is because it's not Edi HaKosha. And why is it not Edi HaKosha? Because of the loophole, it has to be similar to Azama, and just like Azama, it has to be in front of you, so to HaKosha has to be in front of you. So I'm aware of Nachman, 1 second. I'm not buying this. Ilu Havi Kamon. If they were alive and they were in front of us, umachishim lahu, and they would say, you know what? In loyhayev nivra, that this sale took place. Havi achasha. It would have been going to get chasha. It would be tray versus tray. But loy havi mashchina bahu, and we wouldn't listen to the people who signed on the shtar. The havi like edis mucheshes, because they're edim that were what? Were weakened, literally. And hashna delesnahu, and now when they're not around, the ilu havi come on dilmahavi moidelahu. Maybe they wouldn't even admitted that they were a nusim or katana psoliadis. Mehimna, they would be believed. So I don't understand how you can collect with the shtar. And the svara to say that it's not Edi Akosha because it's not here doesn't go ahead and in any shape or form tell me why you should be able to collect with the shtar. If they were around, then they would you couldn't collect with the shtar. And if they were around, maybe they'd even agree with the second pair, and it won't even be Edi Akosha. It wouldn't even be any akasha. They'd agree. So how can you collect with the shtar? Ella, you're right. Omer of Nachman. Uki trei lahade trei. We'll go 2 versus 2. Uki memona b'cheskas mari. And it's every suffix mammon. If you want to go ahead and be mitzi mammon, what do you have to do? You have to go ahead mitzi mechaverei alav lehevi araya. Right? That's the case. You 2 against 2 in a case like this by karka and mitzi mechaverei alav lehevi araya. Good. That's what the Gemara says. Now we're going to bring a proof to that. Midi dahave anichse de bar shatya. Perhaps it's like the nechasim of bar shatya. Now bar shatya was a person who was sometimes normal and sometimes not. Sometimes he had the din of a shaita, and sometimes he had a din of normal. He was a bipolar person. The bar shatya is zovin nichse. By Shavin, he sold his property. Asa betray. 2 people came along in Amri. When he sold it, he was not normal, and it's not a good sale. V'yasu betray, and came along another 2. V'amrei kishu chalam zavin. No, he sold it when he was normal, and therefore it should stay what by the person that he sold it to. Some Ravashi uki trei lahade trei. We're going to go ahead 2 against 2 for uki mewana b'cheskas bar shatya, and we'll put the money in the cheskas of bar shatya. He was the last muchzik. In other words, obviously the field did not get to the hands of the lokeach yet, or else the lokeach will be the muhsik, right? So bar shatya was the chazaka, and therefore we're going to keep it by him. So this is an example of when in doubt, keep the money where it is. Now, be aware this is only by karka, not by money, right? If you look at the Taisvis, the first wide line for Vuki Arba Chesed bar shatya, dafka b'karka hu darmin hachi. We dafka say this by karka. The havi becheskas hamuchsik. It's in the cheskas whoever's holding on to it. Okay, whoever's holding on to it. That's what we say. So l'chara, I was wrong when I told you. L'chara, even if the lokeach had it, we go ahead and put the suffix back by we put it back the chazaka beforehand. The fact that he's on the land now is not muksik. The fact that he sold it, the last person to own it was bar shatya. When do we say that you're going to keep it by bar shatya? El disle chazaka davase, where he had a chazaka by his father. In other words, an established chazaka by a healthy person. Avalesle chazaka davase, but if you don't have the chazaka of the father, so Amrinon kishu shaita zavin, he bought it when he was a shaita, ukshu shaita zavin, and he was a shaita, he sold it. In other words, bar shatya, since of this bipolarism, this schizophrenic personality, he's not capable of being masik, because you could say that what? Maybe he sold it, bought it when he was not normal, which is not a good sale, or maybe he sold it when it's not a good sale. So if you want to keep it by shatya, it's got to be an existing chazaka. Existing chazaka will be by his healthy father that you know for sure he was there 3 years and unequivocally it was his field. Okay, so we have this din. We have this din, two Edom are dead. We don't know what the story is. Two people come along and say, what? Right? And when we don't need their edis, we're going to say, Ein and Nemonim. Why do we don't need their edis? Because we have a star or other Edom saying that's kasha. So Ein and Nemonim, and therefore what? It's a good star. The Gemara goes in, so it's not true. It's not a good star. You can't collect it. What are we going to do? We're going to keep the land wherever it's supposed to be. Where do we see a precedent for that? We see the precedent by Shatya. The question is, when he sold it, was he healthy or not healthy? We're unsure. What are we going to do? You can go ahead and put it by him. Next case. Omamar, going back over the Brisa. Again, the Brisa that we brought in, guys, just look back at the Brisa. What did the Brisa say? Omamar. The Brisa said, if you have Adim or a star that came from another Bezdin, now not just a star that came from another Bezdin, a star that had been questioned about its authenticity, and they went ahead and they authenticated these Eidim. Such a star would be good Eidis to another star. Such a star that had been authenticated in Bezdin would be a good Eidis to Mekayim another star. So now we're going to go ahead and take that point and deal with that. Says the Gemara. Amamar. Im yesh Eidim sheksav yodam huzeh, right? If you have Eidim, another Eidim that it's the Ksav Yad, or the Ksav Yad was coming out from another place, Mishtar Shekorolov Error, a star that on that star had been an error, had been a question about its authenticity. The Huchzik bebezdin, and it was Muchzik in Bezdin, Ein Ne'amonim, then the second pair won't be believed because they don't have the Pesha Asa, right? They don't have we're not samech upon them. Now the Gemara just stelzich on the fact that it had to be authenticated in another Bezdin, right? Says the Gemara, Korolov Ira in Dafka, if that star that had been authenticated had come into question about its authenticity, Loi Korla Ira Loi. But if not, then it's not a good star. It's not a good raya that's authenticated. Messiah Rav Asi, Dam Rav Asi, Ein Mekayim Mesa Star, El Mishtar Shekorlav Ira v'Huchzik bebezdin. Right? Only a star that was muchzik in Bezdin, right? So that, in other words, since that star, in other words, there's always the question, guys, about Mezuyif. You're questioning a star now. Maybe the star is fabricated. So you're going to bring another star. Maybe that star's fabricated. All you needed to do is, therefore, you needed to have Bezdin establish its authenticity. Then you could use it as a base. Now continues the Gemara again. There's a bunch of din in shtaris. The study of shtaris, a bunch of din in shtaris. Amri Nadoi said, Ein Mekayim Mesa Star, El Mishtei Kesuvos, with the two Kesuvos they had signed upon, or Mishtei Sadais, or two sales, bills of sales that they had gone ahead, and the signature is exactly the same. And then if you have a third star that has the exact same signature, we'll say those two previously would be okay. In other words, like you have either two Kesuvos or two bill of sales where you have the exact same signatures of these edis. We could then use it for this third one and know that's what it's not a counterfeit. Provided that the owner lived. How do you know these stars were good stars? That were good bill of sales? Because the owner lived on that field after the sale for 3 years without any question of his ownership. So you know for sure that the sale went through based upon this bill of sale, based upon this document, right? So once it went through based upon this document, you know for sure that since no one had a chashash or anything, you know that it was very good. So this is another way of having a star didn't go through Bezdin. We have another way of authenticating it. Two previous ones that were effective, that the sale that they represented was a good sale. Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Now, Rav Simi Rashi, I got one addendum over here. It's got to be that the person who has the third star is not the one producing the other two. The other two are being produced by another individual. But if this person who has the third one is reproducing it, we could say since it was in his possession, he forged the third star, right? Aval miyad atzmai, the person himself who wants to authenticate the third star, if he's producing the other two, then loy. No. Maishna tachas yad atzmai deloy. What's the difference? Dilma ziyufay mizayfay. Maybe what he counterfeited it. For the Gemara, tachas deyachanami dilma azal b'chazi asib b'zayev. In other words, maybe if it was in the hands of somebody else, maybe he saw it there and he looked at the signatures and he went ahead and he counterfeited, he forged it. It says, a person keeping mechavin so much. In other words, if you're a forger, you definitely have to have the template that you want to forge in front of you. To do it by memory is impossible. So therefore, if another person had it, there's no concern that he could have forged it by looking at it because it's not in his possession. In his possession, where he can look at it and exactly trace it, who knows what he could do, then we won't believe the guy. Another din in shtaris. Tan Rabbana. Kesuvos adam edusay ala shtar umei oleh afilu lacha kama shanim. Now, person says, listen, I want you to be an aid to what happened over here. Okay? Aidis guys, you want to know date, you want to know time, you want to know year, you want to know information, you want to know amount. Okay, you agree to it. Now, you don't know when you're going to be called upon for this testimony. You're allowed to write down stuff. You're allowed to write it down. Good? Now, here's the question. It has me pihem, mi piksavam. One of the things that Adis is, al pishnayim edim, you have to verbally say it. If you don't remember anything and you're reading it, then it's not you. So we're going to get into how could he say over here, the Brisa says a person's able to do this. How is that possible? So that's the concern over here. Even after many years. Provided that what he wrote into Kesav just jars his memory. But ultimately what he says is going to be what he remembers. You know, sometimes we have something that jars our memory, right? You don't think about something, and then for those people of advanced youth, you hear a jingle, and then you remember exactly the commercial that was on television, lahavdil. You know, you hear a jingle and it jars a memory to you. It's not pshat that you're learning from the jingle. It's not pshat over here that lahavdil that you're testifying, reading the testimony. Oh, yeah, I remember that. That you can do. That you can do. Rabbi Yochanan Omer, afa pishein zoichem miatzmai. Even if he doesn't remember by himself, right, then he's able to use it. Afa pishein zoichem, even right, even in other words, according to Rav Huna, shezoichem miatzmai, he without looking at the shtar nitzma, he remembers a little bit. Rabbi Yochanan says he could write the whole thing. Says Rashi, afa pishein zoichem miatzmai. Only after he saw it, Nosam Beliboy, when this guy draws his memory, not so much that he forgot, if he didn't remember anything at all, so in other words, there's three madregas. Rav Hun is saying that what just looking at it, but not being medayik so much. Rav Yochanan says medayik, you could be medayik provided that it's jarring your memory to a larger extent. But Masha Enkin, if you don't remember a blessed thing, everyone will be moida that you can't testify. Gets me PM b'leim mikik savam. Amar Rava Shmamina. What do we hear? Shmamina Rabbi Yochanan. What do we hear from Rabbi Yochanan? We hear the following. Hani betray the Yodi Sedusa, these people that they know testimony, Uminasha, and they forgot it. Minasha Chad Minayu. Mitka Chad L'Chavre. One could go ahead and remind the other. One could go ahead and remind the other. Now, what does that mean? You mean provided you don't have to tell them over exactly everything, right? You have to remind them. So just like the shtar could be a means of reminder, so to an individual, a verbal could be a reminder. Iboilahu, atzmai mai. If the Baldin himself, Rashi says, atzmai mai, and Baldin atzmai maskiroi achniskamai. Who's reminding him? The Baldin, the guy who tends to gain by his edus. Don't you remember? What's the halacha? It says so. Rav Kiva Amar Afilu Atzmai. Rav Kiva says Afilu Atzmai. Ma'abrei Rav Ashi Amar Atzmai Loi. The person, the Baldin himself, cannot be the reminder. The hilchasa and the halacha is on the days Atzmai Loi. The halacha is Atzmai is not believed, right? The Itzumar Rabbanan who, however, if he's a young Talmid Chacham, Afilu Atzmai, even what himself would be believed. Afilu Atzmai would be believed. In other words, that if the Baldin reminds him and he's a Tzumar Rabbanan, he's a Talmid Chacham, we're not concerned that he's going to give into any pressure that he might feel to testify on behalf of the Baldin. For example, Kihod Rav Ashi have a Yediyah lei b'sadusa l'Rav Kahana. Rav Ashi knew Edis for concerning Rav Kahana. Amalei midocha mar haisadusa. Do you remember? So Rav Kahana said to Rav Ashi, "Do you remember?" Amalei loy. I don't. So Rav Kahana was the atzmoi. He was the Baldin. Rav Ashi said, "I don't remember." The lav hachi v'hachi have. Rav Kahana said, "Didn't such and such happen?" Amalei lo yadana. Didn't know. So Rav Kahana thought that he's stuck. He doesn't have edus. L'soif itka Rav Ashi. In the end, Rav Ashi remembered, but not Machmas Rav Kahana. He remembered himself. However, as Asidlei, he went ahead and testified on behalf of Rav Kahana. But Rav Kahana didn't realize that he remembered because he had told him, "No, I don't remember." So Chazil Rav Kahana, Dahavi Machasim. He saw Rav Kahana, he was wondering, what's going on over here? There's no way Rav Ashi is going to go ahead and testify. So Malay Misarvis Alecho Kasamchina. Rav Ashi told him, "You think I'm slamming on you? You think I'm dependent upon you? I'm not happy to Ramida Nafshe Atkari. I put it on myself and I remembered." So here you see an example. If it's Subim Rabban on someone, Tamachakal Rav Ashi, even Atzmai, if the Baldin Rav Kahana in this case reminds you, then what? You can go ahead and say this. Now the Gemara now is going to digress as only the Gemara can. It's unbelievable. We're speaking about remembering Edis. The Gemara is going to get into a shaila. How long? Is there any statute of limitations on Edis? Is there any statute of limitations on Edis? The Gemara to get into this is going to bring a Mishnah in Oilus. It's a Mishnah in Oilus. You're going to see, guys, nothing whatsoever to do with this Masechta, but we're going to bring it in from one point. Okay? Now, if you didn't have a Beis HaKfaris, there's people, when we spoke about the Chacham Regois and Eretz Ha'amim, that it's Tameh, because they're not careful where they go ahead and demarcate their graves. People would be often, if there was a hill, a tail, some type of pile of things, they would use it as a burial place, because since people don't walk on piles, you don't have to worry about the V'Taira. So the Mishnah in Oilos is describing the case over here. It says the Mishnah, Tan Hassam. We have a Mishnah there in Oilos in the Perek Tezayim Mishnah base. Hatolilios, the mounds, literally the mounds. Hakroivos, if they're close, we'll see to what. Bein le'ir, bein le'derech, whether to a city or a derech. Echad chadashos, whether they're new mounds. The echad yishanos, where they're old mounds. Tameos. We're going to be concerned that there is a mace there and they're tamei. That's the kroivos. If they're korov, so it's mashma korov, no matter where, no matter how old, that's it. Harachaykos, what about if they're far? Again, we'll define all these terms. Harachaykos, chadashos, if they're new, tahoiros. Yeshanos, tameos. What's pshat? Something that is korov, who's going to bury over here? We're going to see a woman who miscarried and is too embarrassed to go ahead or a mukach shchin who loses an aver, who loses a limb. Aver menachayis metama, like a mace. So these people are apt to bury in these places. That's when it's korov. When it's rachaik, So therefore, it doesn't make a difference whether it's new or old, right? Or near a city or a derech. If it's close, tamei. Far away, it's different. A woman is not going to go far away because it's not the derech of a woman to go far away. So now, if it's new, we'll say we would know if anything went on over here, and it's tar. If it's old, we would have forgotten. Okay, so that's the difference between an old and new vis-a-vis what? A rachok. Good. Says the Gemara. Harachoikos, chadashos, tahiros, yishainos, tameos. Ezel kroiva, what's considered close? Chamishim amma, 50. The ezehi yishana, what's old? Shishim shana. This is what we need, guys. 60 years. Different Reb Meir. Anything beyond 60 years is off limits. Anything before 60 years, people will remember. Nothing's closer than it. Yishana shein adam zecheres. No one remembers. Now, but not a time span. Now, what's the ear, my ear and derech? My ear and my derech. Ilema ear mamish, derech mamish. Misfeikim imechaskin and tuma. Al sofik. We don't know. Are you going to say it's tamei? Vom Reish Lakish says, Ila matzu v'tir Eretz Yisrael. They found an excuse. They matar Eretz Yisrael, as opposed to Eretz Amim, right? That was tamei. Eretz Yisrael. We're not going to be matam Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, what's ear and what's ear and what's derech? Rav Zera, ear has smucha lebeis hakfaris, a city that's near a beis hakfaris. The derech is derech beis hakfaris. So now we have a little more information. So let's go through it. A koroiv to a beis hakfaris, whether it's an ear or a derech, it's tamei. It's tamei. If it's rachok, then it depends whether it's new or old. Let's fit it in. Bishleim a derech beis hakfaris. This is in the Misrami Bein Hashmashos. There'll be Erev Shabbos, and it's mamish nightfall. Umikri kvari b'tal. What's going to happen? They'll bury it in a towel. In other words, why wouldn't they take it to the cemetery? If it's close to the cemetery, why would they bury it in the cemetery? And the answer is maybe Bein Hashmashos, the Erev Shabbos, they won't have a chance. They'll do that. Ela'ir asmuchul beis hakfaros, hula beis hakfaros asli. If it's an ear that's next to the beis hakfaros, everyone goes to the beis hakfaros. So why is it tamei? Even though it's karev, though not everyone's going to go to the beis hakfaros. You know why? Women who are embarrassed, they're going to go ahead and put their child, the newborn child, they'll bury. The stillborn child buried. And someone who has some type of disease, they'll bury his limbs. Ad chamishim amma, Osli, up to chamishim amma, they'll go and bury. Only what? Beyond 50, a person will go with her and they'll go to the beis hakfaros. So that's the difference between Karv and Rachak vis-a-vis a city. Well, the beis hakfaros Oslo. Hilkach, Tumet Beretz Yisrael, Lemechaskinah. What do we see from Meir who said 60 years? All we needed this for, guys, was that you can remember up to 60 years. That's all. Amr Rav Chisda, Shmami Nam, Reb Meir, Hai Sadusa, Ad Shisin Shanin, Midkar. Tfei, Le Midkar. Right? So, L'chaira, how could you say by us that people could remember? Maybe it's limited. Maybe, in other words, we're just saying, not a question. We're saying there's a statute of limitations on memory. It's not true. You can't compare Beis HaKfaris to over here. Hasam hu d'lei ram yaleha. By the Beis HaKfaris, it's not up to any particular individual. You're not, in other words, you weren't appointed an aide to know what's underneath that mound. You weren't appointed an aide. People might remember something that happened, but you weren't an appointee. However, hacha, when you signed on a star, keeping the Ramiale, since it's placed upon you, afilu tuvanami, even more than 60 years, you'd be required to remember. Even more than 60 years, you'd be required to remember. Okay, thank you everyone for listening. Have a good evening.